Welcome to the power of storytelling. If you are a new speaker trying to become better, this is definitely one of the skills that you must develop to become a better speaker. If you are somebody who already does some public speaking, this is a skill that you must continue to be stronger at so that you can become an effective speaker. The difference between a good speaker and a great speaker is your ability to leverage storytelling in your speeches. So this is going to be full of nuggets. So pay attention, take notes, and let's get into it. The magic behind using stories. Remember this, number one, facts tell, but stories compel. As a speaker, you can speak to people about a topic or a subject matter, and after a few minutes, you run the risk of losing their attention. When you use a story, though, what occurs is that you engage the audience's inner voice. That's the magic of using a story. That's the first nugget that I'm giving you. You don't want to just talk at people. You want to speak with them. Our mind speaks in images. And when you start sharing a story, as you begin describing the details, the audience begins picturing those details as a movie in their minds. And that's when you got them engaged. That is the magic of using a story when you speak. Remember this, don't speak at the audience, speak with the audience. Just like I said a few minutes ago, as you do the story, now you're not speaking at the audience, but you're speaking with them. Because since you are engaging their inner voice, the story allows you to connect with them. This is where connection occurs. Not speaking at them, but speaking with them, speaking to their inner voice. You see, our inner voice speaks to us in words, but it also speaks to us in images about what we are thinking. A story allows you to engage the audience at a deeper level, and through the images that you create with the details in the story is when you connect to your audience emotionally. This does not happen as easily when you're just using facts and studies and the survey says type of thing. It only occurs when you effectively use a story. Remember this, never make a point without leveraging the emotion of a story, and never waste the emotion of a story without making a point. I heard people make different remarks about this, but I always added this emotion part to it. It is important that when you use a story, that you don't only make the point of the story at the end of it, but dig in, leverage the emotion behind that story, the emotion you were trying to convey to your audience, the emotion that they were experiencing as you were going through the story. After all, that is the ultimate weapon and reason why we want to use a story, to be able to call upon the emotion that the audience feels so that we can connect to them. Make sure that you leverage the emotion of the story, not just the point of the story. What I want to do now is to share with you an acronym that will help you remember the important elements that you should keep in mind when you use a story in your speech. For example, we're going to use the word story in the letters S-T-O-R-Y. The letter S stands for synergy. Synergy. The definition of synergy is two or more elements working together and cooperating. The synergy that I'm referring to is your mindset must take it as a given that you are there to create synergy with your audience. Take that as a given. Make it part of your mindset. The story allows you to really create this synergy with your audience because it connects to them emotionally. As a speaker, you cannot create this level of synergy with just facts and statistics or studies. The only way that you can do that is through creating an emotional connection. And this emotional connection is what occurs when you use the story because you're speaking to the audience's inner voice. That is where emotional connection occurs. All of a sudden now, you are one of them. They see you in a similar form as they are. They see some kind of experience or connection to you. And that is what creates the synergy. And it allows two or more elements to work together. In this case, you, the speaker, them, the audience. That's the point of using a story, creating synergy. Remember that. The T in the word story stands for tangible. Tangible means when you use the story, you must connect it to the part of your message or point that makes it relatable to the audience. You must make sure that the story connects in some way, shape, or form to something in their lives. You gotta take it one step further and connect it to them in their lives so that they can see the connection. That's why it must be tangible. The O in story stands for orderly. When you use a story, you must decide what format you will use throughout your speech to leverage that story. That format can take many forms. All I ask is that you keep one consistent way. For example, if you decide to share your story, share the story, then ask some questions to connect to the audience, and then land your message of that story, then keep the same format throughout your speech. Because if you do it different ways every time, it will confuse them. But if you do it the same way every time, then they will start getting a rhythm and a feeling for how the speech is structured and what they can expect. And it's this element of being able to predict where you're going that also makes it very relatable, and it makes it easier for them to connect to. So for example, if I were sharing that I was fearful of making a decision, I share the story. Maybe I share details of the story. Then I ask questions about have they ever experienced something like that? And then I will share my experience when I went through it, and then I will connect it back to them. How did they react when they were in a similar situation? You see what I mean? Orderly. Keep the same order. Whatever order you choose, just keep the same one throughout your speech so that the story can be used the same way throughout the speech, and they can almost predict where you're going with it so that they can be in tune with the experience of it. That is the key. The other thing that you may want to consider is this. I suggest to some of my clients, when you're thinking about your story, write it down. You got to write it down. You can't just allow this to be in your head and just from your head, just think that you're going to drop it in order. No, write it down as if you were writing a term paper. Write out an outline and decide what points of the story you're going to share, 1, 2, and 3, and then decide on the details that you will share about the story, and then the questions that you will say to relate it back to the audience, and keep the same format. You see what I mean? 1, 2, 3. But once you see it on paper, it is easier to be in order, and you can see if it flows from point A to point B and make adjustments before you start practicing on the delivery. R is for reflection. The whole point of sharing a story is so that you can help your audience reflect on something they haven't thought of. That is the whole point of the story. So this reflection, though, only occurs because you, the speaker, will create the moment, will incite and ignite that thinking in your audience where they get into a moment to reflect. So after you share that story, you may ask some questions about how they reacted in a similar situation. And then at the end, when you share with them that how you overcame that challenge and what you learned from it, now here is the portion where you place some strategic questions to help them reflect as to how they can also be better in a similar scenario. Questions such as, how long will you allow fear to rule your decisions moving forward? How could your life change for the next 5 years if you make sure that fear is not part of your decision-making process? And if you do decide to do that, how will you go about it? Those questions with a great story behind it will help the audience reflect. And that is what makes the difference in the experience of listening to a speech or living through a speech. We got to stop making speeches, and creating experiences. And this reflection moment, leveraging the story, is exactly how you do that. Remember what I said, never waste the emotion of a story without making a point. This is that reflection part of it. The last part, which is connected to reflection. If you are effective creating a reflection moment for your audience, then they will want to be more. They will yearn to do something better. They will yearn to do something bigger with themselves and their lives. And that is the byproduct of using and leveraging a story properly and effectively when you speak. Your audience will want to be more, to do more, to change the world, to change themselves. That's the beauty of a speaker. That's the power that you have if you can leverage the delivery and the stories when you speak publicly. So remember, these are some of the elements that you should keep in mind every time that you use a story when you speak. Create synergy. The synergy is with your audience. That is what you're there for. Creating this exchange of energy where two or more working together to create something new. That's what you're there for as a speaker. Make it tangible. Connect the story to something in their lives, something that they can touch, something that they can relate and think about. Make it orderly. Decide an order that you will do and a format that you will follow through your speech, so that you can keep the same steps and almost make it predictable for your audience to know that the experience is going in this direction. Create a moment of reflection. Remember to always dig into the emotion of the story. Don't just make a point about the story. Dig into the emotion of the story after you triumphantly share with them how you overcame the challenges. Then help them reflect how they may also be able to overcome those challenges and what they will do moving forward, and help them yearn to be bigger, yearn to do more, yearn to change the world, yearn to change themselves. All of these are steps connected through the story. And at the end of it all is what will make you a great speaker. When you learn how to leverage a story, connect to your audience's inner voice, leverage the emotion of a story, and help them reflect so that they yearn how to be a better version of themselves, okay? Keep this in mind, and remember, it's not about perfection, but it is about progression. Put yourself through the experience. Keep practicing. Keep these elements in your mindset so that they become habitual patterns of thinking, and so that you can be the best speaker that you can be. This is Pablo Murillo from Genesis Leadership Trainings. See you at the top, where the champions belong.